Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about the behaviour of Crest at Shorelines and how to do some tweaking to improve the effect. We get the request all the time to do really high fidelity shorelines with tumbling waves or fully breaking waves. It's a really hard problem to make this happen, and it's something that we want to get better at in the future. But in the meantime, there are a few things that you can do with the current deck that we have right now to get a reasonable shoreline effect going. So I'm going to try to demo that in this scene. This is Crest HCRP in a scene that one of our community members made. And I'm going to start by first configuring the waves a little bit. The problem that I want to address first is that by default, the waves are ramped down a lot in shallow water, and it means that on the beaches, there's really not much waves coming through onto the beach. This is a bit of a conservative setting to try to avoid self-intersections of the water with geometry and that kind of thing, but it can actually be relaxed quite a lot to allow the waves to get up the beach somewhat. So I'm going to create a settings asset for the animated waves, which I can edit. And this attenuation in shallows, that's the multiplier to use in the shallow water. So if I reduce that a lot, to let's say 0.498, then I'm getting a lot more of the waves. I'm getting 50% of the waves coming up in that shallow water. So that's improved things a fair bit. One thing that I'm distracted by is the amount of foam. And generally the behavior of the foam is not really there with what you would expect. So I'm going to now create a foam settings asset, which I do here, just rename it so I don't stop the previous one. And if I expand that, sim settings foam, the first thing I'm just going to do for now is to just kill the foam from the waves. So let's reduce that a lot. I've got a value that I like for this called 0.428. So that removes some of that noise. The next thing I'm seeing is kind of a big band of foam at the shoreline. So I want to reduce the width of that band of the foam that's generated there. And there's a parameter which controls over what range of water depths we get foam generated at the shoreline. So I'm going to set that to something much smaller, let's say to 0.17, and this should give it a much crisper edge to that shoreline foam. The next thing I want to do is, so the foam's kind of appearing but not really settling on the water and not sticking around. So I'm going to reduce the foam fade rate a bunch, and I've got a value that I like to 0.2. So that means when foam is generated, it should hang around for just a bit longer, and you can see there that it's not hanging around forever, but it's kind of sticking around a bit. The last thing I want to do is to maybe make the generation of foam at the shoreline a little bit gentler. So if I go ahead and set this to 0.57, it stops there being a line that was kind of visible all the time, and it just mellows it out a little bit. So now the effect we have is that when the water is not moving up the coast, there's maybe touches of foam, but it's more or less removed. But then when the water does move up the beach, it exposes areas and it brings the foam out. Basically, the shoreline foam gets pulled up, and yeah, it gives what I feel is a rudimentary foam effect and a rudimentary shoreline effect. It's not perfect, and it's easy to point out how it can be improved, but maybe this is enough for a lot of applications, or maybe you guys can get better results. So I think that's it. Thanks for listening, and cheers.